Welcome to Tuvalu, the second smallest country in the world and the least visited country in the world. This is the very small but very nice international airport behind me, and I'm going to show you around this incredible but very tiny and very at-risk country. And I'm going to try to tell you a little bit about it along the way. So Tuvalu has a population of just under 10,000 people, which makes it smaller than, well, think of a small town, you know, of around 10,000 people and insert here. And it averages around 3,000 foreign tourists a year, which is not surprising because there's one flight a day. So that was the flight I got in today, and there were maybe 20 on it, and that would be the popular tourist flight because that was the one coming in from Nadi rather than Suva. So I mean, per capita they do all right in terms of tourists, because 3,000 a year versus 10,000 people is, it's not terrible, but obviously the country is so small, the tourist numbers are just diluted by the fact that they're such a small country. Just got a Coke because it is boiling, considerably hotter than Fiji or New Zealand were. I don't think I've ever had Vietnamese Coke before. Yeah, it's quite nice. Tastes exactly the same as all the others, but just in a funky Vietnamese can. Well, this building by there I believe to be the church, and there was this interesting memorial I came to just to find out what it was. And there is a plaque there for the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Funafuti and the US Marines landing here to presumably reclaim it from Japanese hands in the Second World War. I can only really imagine the absolute chaos and tragedy that would have happened here, being fought over by two people they would have never had any correspondence with. They would have no interest in the Second World War, and yet I'm sure plenty of local people would have died as a result of it. Very sad. Well, this little building by here, this is the town council for Funafuti, which is the capital city, and the council building is a two-storey house, which now in this place is probably multi-purpose as well. It is very, very small, very quaint. I would hazard a guess that every single person on the island knows every single other person and all their relatives. Tried to get directions a couple of times and it's like, oh, it's just down there. Not actually convinced anyone knows how to give directions, because they just know where everything is automatically. So yeah, oh, there's a school by there. Not going to film the school, that's a bit weird. Well, that's interesting. There's a university campus by there. I was under the impression that in order to get higher education, you needed to leave the island and go to Fiji or New Zealand or something. That was the impression I got from online. I don't know whether that is the case and that sign is just old, or the university have just funded that building maybe. And it's quite sad that they need this disaster preparedness place, because the average elevation, or the highest point on the entire country, is 2.9 meters. So when people talk about climate change and how it's going to affect different parts of the world, this is where it's going to hit hardest, because, well, they're already putting plans in motion to evacuate everyone from the islands, because in the not too distant future, sadly, the islands are going to be sunk. There's not going to actually be a Tuvalu. They're going to cease to exist, which is really quite sad, and I don't know how as a community you could actually come to an understanding around that. Right, now this building by there, that is the hospital. That is the Princess Margaret Hospital. Don't know why it's named after Princess Margaret. I mean, Tuvalu was part of the sort of British Dominion. It's part of the Commonwealth. Still got the English royal family as head of state. So presumably there might have been a royal visit here in the past, maybe. Maybe that's why the hospital's named after it. Or maybe someone just fancied it. Possible either way. Interesting though, interesting. They don't seem to do very much upkeep to buildings. So I assume building materials are very hard to come by here. But yeah, like I said, that's just me putting two and two together. I am going to try and get out of the heat though, because this is like Tokyo, Singapore level of heat, and I am literally melting on camera, and I can feel it. When it comes to transport on Tuvalu, it's pretty much exclusively motorbikes. Obviously, the second that I've started filming, a car's come past. That is classic, but it's almost exclusively motorbikes, presumably because they're cheaper to run, and the distances just aren't very big. So it's a very small island, so the maximum distance that you're going to actually ever have to travel is very small compared to living on any other country in the world, really. Well, if you ever wanted to know what it looks like inside a Tuvaluan supermarket, then today is your lucky day. So a lot of the food that comes onto the islands is imported frozen, just because of travel distances and trying to keep things as fresh as possible. So that means that a lot of the vegetables that you get, so a bit like this corn and broccoli, comes on frozen. It's also slightly more affordable for people, which does make a big difference. Similarly, in terms of meat, if meat is not grown or reared on the islands, then it's imported frozen. You'll also notice that a lot of random products have considerably higher prices than you'd imagine. So for example, that ketchup was 12 Australian dollars, which is a lot of money for ketchup. Same for sort of sweets and chocolate and crisps. So for example, that candy is $8, which is a lot of money for a small bag of sweets. But then some stuff is fairly reasonable. Yeah, that's just me showing you. Bag of crisps, 5 Australian dollars. You'd better hope that your fridge or appliances don't break, because they're extremely expensive to get on the island. That fridge was over 3,000 Australian dollars, and the same goes for all large appliances like that. It costs a lot of money to import them, so they cost a lot of money, is the sad reality of it for the locals. There are some quite random things that make their way onto the island as well, which I presume this is a sort of British Empire carry-on. Carnation milk, didn't expect that, really didn't at all. But this is your one-stop shop for everything. They even sell hats. If you needed a hat, this is the place to go, including if you wanted a Ronaldinho branded hat. Didn't even know they did that. Well, this could be a first. This might be the first ever traffic jam on Tuvalu. It's a whole 8 vehicles long. There's a restaurant here. I haven't seen a restaurant yet. It's a Chinese place. I'm very hot. I'm about to come inside. As you can see, I am absolutely boiling. Well, I went to order beef chow mein because we're in a Chinese in Tuvalu. He very quickly told me no beef. So we had to go for backup option, which was chicken chow mein. And I was waiting for him to tell me that there were no noodles. But no. Chicken chow mein it is. So this place with the immaculate vibes of the very angry Chinese man behind the thing, the two locals, is called the Blue Ocean Restaurant, I think, or Blue Lagoon Restaurant, something like that. Seems to be the place to go on a Monday lunchtime in Funafuti. Really didn't expect to be having Chinese today, but I suppose that's how it goes when you go to the least visited country in the world. You have what's open, and what's open is a place that sells only chicken in either chow mein or rice. Here we go, it's lunchtime at the Blue Ocean Restaurant in Funafuti, Tuvalu. Pretty good. Well, I was just chatting to a local fella who was sadly too nervous to be on camera. He was too shy, bless him. He was picking up his Chinese for his takeaway lunch, which is really funny that that's a thing on Tuvalu. I don't know why I didn't think there would be Chinese or Indian people here, but I didn't. It's just not something that I thought existed. So it just cracks me up that they're having Chinese takeout Monday lunchtime, just casually in Funafuti. But he was saying he loves living here. He loves it. He said there's no trouble, no crime, no problems. It's just easy. It's just easy living. They have nice weather. They occasionally have a cyclone, and that's pretty much the extent of their problems. Right, well, I think that's me about done with my chicken chow mein. Yeah, if I'm honest, I mainly wanted to escape the heat without having to go back to my guest house, and I'll be honest, quite a lot of the chicken was bony or gristly. It was nice meal. Yeah, noodles, veg, onions, bit of chicken. It was cool, nice, unexpected. Not what I'd envisaged for lunch in Tuvalu. Well, I can't say that I answer many of life's questions on this channel, but if you have ever found yourself lying awake at night wondering what is a Chinese takeaway like on the island of Tuvalu, then there we go, answered. This right here, this is my hotel. This is it, Esfam Hotel. Best hotel in Tuvalu. Well, the only one I've got experience of staying on in Tuvalu. If I'm honest, I've ducked back into my hotel for a little bit because it is absolutely sweltering outside. So I'm going to chill out here for, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe, just to regulate the old body temperature again. Yeah, then we'll see what the rest of the island and city have to offer. Well, just to try and vindicate myself for getting so hot and sweaty, I've gone onto the Wi-Fi in the hotel, and to be fair, it's got a real feel of 38, which, if that's saying that, I think in the sun is probably closer to 45, which, yeah, fair enough. I'm warranted a bit of sweating in those sorts of temperatures. This would be a serious criminal offence in most other countries, but not here in Tuvalu, because in Tuvalu the airport runway also serves as one of the main roads. Obviously, space is a premium here, so you've got to make do with what you can make do with, and big long strip of tarmac makes a perfect road as well as a runway. Busiest place in the entire island. Well, there you go. That was the National Bank of Tuvalu, the only bank on Tuvalu, and it was packed, absolutely rammed. I'm just going to quickly talk over myself for a second, because I forgot to tell you that the reason it was so busy in the bank is because on Tuvalu you can only pay in cash. They do not have the connectivity to take card payments. So if, for whatever reason, you come to Tuvalu, bring some Australian dollars, because you will not be able to buy anything otherwise. Again, I've come to cool off, this time in what looks like an airport runway bar. So I'm going to have a beer I've never heard of. It's apparently Dutch. Well, this is what I wanted to find this afternoon. Somewhere just peaceful by the Lagoon waters in sunny Tuvalu. Well, it was at this point that I considered going for a dip, but I decided against that because they're doing some work on the coast a little bit further up to try and protect it from erosion, and it made the lagoon look a little bit murky and a bit dirty, so I kind of decided against it. There are some fantastic swimming spots if you wish to do that, but I didn't find any around the city itself. Well, that lovely house, that swanky house, is entitled Government House, so I assume that is where the Prime Minister or equivalent lives in Tuvalu. I'm not quite sure what they're doing there, but what they're physically doing is digging sand up and sort of keeping it up to move somewhere. I wonder whether they're strengthening the ocean side, because obviously the lagoon side is less at risk of erosion. So I wonder whether they're trying to strengthen up the Pacific Ocean side, where they're possibly at risk of, well, not possibly about it, they are at risk of being sunk. Well, I think I found the one place to get souvenirs in Tuvalu, and that is the post office. Doesn't look entirely open, but let's see. Well, that came through when it came to gifts. Got some nice postcards and also some stamps, which I don't usually get, but apparently they're really, really hard to get. So I figured I'd buy some anyway. Well, there's not really any sort of coffee shops, or I don't know whether they have coffee on the island at all. Sorry, me going off on a tangent. Yeah, there's not really anywhere to like sit and chill out, so I've come back to the guest house just for a bit of cool aircon for a bit. Gonna have dinner here as well, simply because there are 3 restaurants I found on the entire island, and they're all Chinese's. So it wasn't a fluke that I found one for lunch. They are the only restaurants. Kind of makes sense. There aren't really any tourists here, so the restaurants are catering for the locals. Well, the locals are going to eat local food at home or at their families. They're not going to go for local food out. So therefore, the restaurants cater for what people want as something different. So Chinese food it is. Well, I'm back out after a couple of hours of sort of chilling out in the cool. Definitely overdid it earlier. I was absolutely roasting by the end. The weather seems to have taken a bit of a turn. Quite large banks of clouds running in now. As long as it doesn't rain, I'm quite happy. It's definitely knocked about probably 15 degrees off the temperature, if I'm honest. It's still warm, but it's nowhere near as sticky or hot as it was earlier. Lots of very hot street dogs here. They're all nice. Not aggressive or anything, but they do seem to be very hot today. Well, I came back here to see if anything else was going on now that it's got to sort of the early evening, to see if the place had livened up a bit. And the answer is no, it has not. I think that there is only one level this place gets to, and that is quiet and peaceful, which is great. But they're doing so much construction work here by the lagoon. I didn't really fancy going for a dip. It doesn't look or feel like the greatest place to go for a swim, to be honest. So, bit of a shame. Supposed to be a fantastic coral reef in that lagoon. Loads of green sea turtles and things like that. So, well, would have been nice, but not to be. This is kind of what I was getting at, is there is nowhere else in the world where the airport runway is the centre of the community. You've got lads over there doing rugby training. These kids are playing. There's people just sat down there having a chill out. This is effectively like the central square of the city of Funafuti. It's incredible. There's nowhere like it. The busiest road on the island is the runway, or the track alongside the runway, if not the runway itself. These lot are doing rugby training. Motorbikes parked all over the place. There's kids playing, there's families hanging out. Crazy. You literally do not get this anywhere else in the world. Completely one of a kind. Mad. They're doing bloody karaoke in there. Well, look at that. Didn't expect a chicken or a rooster or whatever variety that is. I don't know my chickens from my roosters. I'm not a farmer. Didn't expect to see them sort of on the runway. I know they're technically in someone's garden, but there's no fence between their garden and the runway. Kind of ruins my theory about the fact that all the meat had to be brought in onto the island. I was under the impression that it was only fish that was fresh, and therefore all the meat was brought in. But that's clearly not true, because they were chickens. As I said, went back to my hotel to have dinner there for something local. And this is what I've got. I've got some rice, some veggies, some mango, and some fish in what I think is like a soy sauce. Very, very good. Highly recommend it. If you happen to be in Tuvalu and are staying at SFAM Lodge, eat the dinner. It's really good. I didn't talk too much in the restaurant because I was chatting away to some of the other guests who were having food in there. It was nice to have food in there because I had actual Tuvaluan food. As opposed to the restaurants which are all Chineses, as I said earlier. Food was nice. It was a very simple option of chicken or fish. Bit like being on a plane, I chose fish, and I had those two big like fish fillets in what was a nice soy sauce with some veggies and some rice and some mango, which was a bit odd, but quite appreciated it. It was nice. Yeah, it was 23 Aussie dollars, so I don't really know what that conversion is. In my head it's about 2 to 1, so I paid about, I don't know what, 11 quid, 12 quid, so yeah, pretty good. Pretty happy with that. Exhausted now, if I'm honest. It's been a long day. I was up at 5 this morning in Fiji, so probably gonna have an early night before breakfast in the hotel in the morning. Good morning from Funafuti, Tuvalu. I just been for breakfast at my guest house, the full Tuvaluan, I'm calling it. I'll put in a picture now. Yeah, pretty good. So there was sort of cereal and toast and stuff, and then there were these sort of donut things, which was really nice, and then freshly cooked bacon and egg, which I didn't expect. From my Funafuti guest house breakfast experience, but yeah, pretty good. Decent start to the day. It is about 10 to 9 in the morning now. If I'm honest, I kind of exhausted the Funafuti tourist attractions yesterday, so I'm probably just going to chill out here for another maybe hour and a half before heading up to the airport. Apparently quite a lot of the local ladies bring out like souvenirs and bits and bobs that they try and sell to people as they're flying back to Fiji, so might be cool to check out. So yeah, well, it's another sunny day in Tuvalu. I am just wandering up to the airport to go and check in, but then apparently procedure is you can just go back to your hotel after you've checked in and just chill out there. And then they put out like a siren when you've all got to go back to the airport to actually like get on the plane. Again, I feel like that's an only in Tuvalu thing. But as you can see, the weather is good again. It's going to be another scorcher. The Aussie fella that I met staying in my guest house is going snorkeling today. I feel like he may get slightly sunburned. But yeah. Is the world's most relaxed check-in and security thing. You go to the security counter and the woman says, do you have any liquids? And you say no, and then you pass through and then you do check-in and the woman basically just sorts you out. Yeah, so got what, 2.5 hours till the plane's gonna get in from Suva, so we're just gonna chill out. Yeah, not really sure what else there is to say. I genuinely think that this is the only place in the world where you can check in over there. Got my bag there, and now I'm gonna walk back to my guest house on the runway of the airport. There can't be anywhere else in the world where you can do this, surely. Well, as you can leave the airport, I figured I'd just come back to the guest house and just chill here for a bit. Got my bags with me still and my boarding pass. Very strange being able to just leave the airport after you've done all that, but the reality of it is that they don't have the facilities down at the airport for people to hang out for 2 hours in, really. So yeah, I'll head back up there probably in half hour or so maybe. Along with your boarding pass, when you check in, they give you an immigration departure card as well, which is handy. They're all solidly paper still, as are all the receipts on the island, which which is quite nice. You get like handwritten receipts for everything. They refuse to let you leave without a receipt. I don't understand the reasoning behind it, but that's how it goes. Okay then, once again, going back to the airport. It's only by there. It's maybe 50 meters from the guest house. Gone back there just in case there's any procedures that need doing before getting the flight. The inbound flight from Suva is due in half hour or so, I think, so yeah, not too bad. This is as close to duty free as you get. These lovely ladies are selling local made shell necklaces. Okay, so you go through the security and passport check, and then you get to this little departures lounge, which is right by the runway, by there. Well, that siren is telling people to get off the runway because the plane is about to land. Okay, so it is time to board the plane back to Fiji, and with that it brings an end to this trip to Tuvalu. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.